It's like,
Hey everybody, it's Thursday. Oh, my screen is all weird.
and welcome to this week's edition of The Night Bite.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Emily. And we are so excited to be here with you. This is always one of my favorite episodes, to be honest. And I think the reason for that is this is one of my favorite work. Well, I was going to say time wasters, but this is something that you can have on while you do your work. I'm getting ahead of myself. So we always start with a fishing report. How come our screen looks different than normal?
I don't know. It just is wonky today, and I don't really have time to fix it. We're already chatting. Just get close to me. Get close to
me. Gosh, now I forgot where I am. But we do always start with a fishing report and stuff like that. And I have to admit that we were not fishing this past weekend. So.
No, we weren't. I just did a lot of boiling of sap. So that's how we spent our weekend. And hopefully here we can get back into fishing pretty soon.
And part of that is, where we are at in Wisconsin, we had just gotten that big giant snow like 1 week before. And so to be honest, when you get 30 inches, we were still trying to clear some of that out and dig the boat back out and stuff like that. It was full on winter again for us. And then, man, I have to say that today our weather, I was going to say, is looking the same, but it's not like so much snow, right? It's not like that, but we are getting ice and all kinds of different, I guess, crazy weather across the state. To be honest, wherever you are in Wisconsin, you probably have crazy weather right now. I heard that on top of all of the snow and everything and the ice that we've been getting here today, that southern Wisconsin is having like rain and tornadoes right now. So I don't know. I hope
out of everything I'll do with what we got today over tornadoes.
And so with that, I guess as far as a fishing report, the things that I do have to say is I have heard reports of there being ice up north. But I have to say that what I have seen is all pretty honeycombed, not really great integrity of ice. So like, even though it kind of looks like it's floating out there in some spots, it might not be all that great. I have heard reports of people making it out onto ice in places. I guess I would say you have to be super careful, but most people at this point are transitioning to open water.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that tonight's guest is what helps us really do that. And so that's why I was going to almost say my favorite work time waster, but it's almost, our time filler and something that really gets us to help our mind shift from ice to open water. So let's bring in Gary.
Hey, how you doing?
Thanks so much for being here this evening.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I always, well, I guess I shouldn't admit that. Maybe this is embarrassing. I was going to say, I always think it's weird to call you Gary because I always just call you the Wolf River Cam guy.
Right. Yeah, no, either one.
Well,
I've been called worse.
That sounds terrible and generic, but the Wolf River Cam is, like I've been saying, one of my favorite things out there. And part of the reason that I say that is because, it's fun to watch the fish, and I don't know, sometimes you fish in front of it, right? But I think really it is a useful tool in learning some of these bodies of water, the Wolf River system, the fish and how they flow through. And like I said, I just have learned so much from just watching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's something too that we always learn every year, whether it be the baits that we put down that they just won't touch. Don't get discouraged. It's just not your jig, it's my jig also that they're not. Just stick with it. Keep your confidence going.
Hey Troy.
We've had them come up and stare at our baits, and we just can't understand why they haven't grabbed it, whether it's minnows or hard bait or whatever the case may be. So it is educational, a little frustrating, but it is educational.
And so I guess in case there's anybody who's joining us here tonight and maybe they don't even know the Wolf River Cam at all, like, can you give us a general overview of, where the cams are? How did you come up with this? Or, a little primer on where did this start?
Well, so this is our 17th year, our 18th season, and years prior to that, we used to watch our aqua ewes all the time in the river and watch the fish migration. And I basically, you fish in the morning before work, and then you go to work, and you get done, you come home, and then you fish afterwards into the evening. But I never really thought, like other than the weekends, I didn't really know. I'm like, are we seeing this many fish at like 10 o'clock in the morning? And I'm like, I want to figure out how to see that while I'm at work or when I'm away. So that was kind of what spiraled into I got to figure out a way to get this to the point where I can like log in or do something. I mean, this is we're 2007, 2008. That's back when webcam and streaming and stuff, whatever was certainly outdoor stuff was really in its infancy stage,
Mhm.
or any existence at all. So just went through and chewed through a lot of ideas. Spent about a year, Kim and I, my wife, trying to figure out how and what means and where and how we're going to do it so that, well, first and foremost, we can see it, but and then other people as well too is kind of what it spawned into, and it just kind of blew up from there, through message boards and things like that. Just the word got out.
Oh my gosh. And it is so fun. Well, I'm going to bring up work again. When you're in a place and you have multiple people watching at the same time, and then a fish goes through, and everyone at the same time is like, whoa, that is, it gives you kind of almost a group sense. It really brings it gets you really ready for the open water season. I'm just so excited. Look at me, I'm like speechless about this, right? But I think because there's not that many opportunities, like you're saying, when you put this out there so many years ago in 2008, like this was a really hard thing to do. Like at that point, you couldn't just like drop a camera in the water and like hook it up to the internet and like call it a day. Like that took a lot of effort. I don't know, and I guess to be honest, it still does, because to even find a place to put all of this. But I know that people are out there. I know that people are watching it, and I just think that is such a fun thing.
Yeah, and it's we we've got we have a kind of a saying that we use, is we can get there from here. Because there's certainly been times where we're like, okay, how do we do this, or how do we do this? Well, back to the books and start
There-
doing some research and trying to figure it out, and then we just keep going and try to figure it out better and better. And then the one constant of having Aquaview, having a premium camera, is we didn't necessarily have to worry about that part of it. So that really helped things out. Because in the early days, we didn't always use, we were sticking everything that was a camera under the water, no matter if it lasted an hour or a day or whatever else. But so it was something that it took a lot of learning, and there was a ton to figure out, and I'm not a computer person. So I know enough to be dangerous, like the term says, whatever. That's really about it. So we learned as much as we had to, and fake it from there, I guess.
Well, and as speaking of, you said better and better. One of the things that has gotten better this year is I don't think this temperature gauge had ever been up there before. Is that true?
Last year was our first year for it, and we brought it back for this year, which was about a 3 or 4 year thing to try to figure out. It was, I mean, I was asking pond people. I was, just I'm like, well, we can figure it out, and it's usually kind of a great relationship thing when we sit down and I say to my wife, I go, hey, so we're trying to do this, and Kim will say, what about this? I'll be like, no, what about this? Oh, wait a minute. Oh, you got something there. So, we just kind of bounce ideas off each other, whatever, usually get everything worked out, and come up to a solution. And you know, once we once we get it, and I don't want to put something out there that's not going to work and whatever else, but so it's got to work. It's not just get it kind of half-heartedly, whatever, doing it. And so that's the other part too.
Well, and I think that's evident throughout the years. You said you started in 2008. I started my job in 2011, and so I think most everybody that watches our podcast knows that I'm in water quality, and so I've been working in the Wolf River watershed for almost 15 years now. And I remember my first year here and finding the Wolf River Cam. And I think beyond just the entertainment value and beyond the the recreational learning as far as like fishing goes, I really think that it's a great personal investment that it gives people. Like, people watch the Wolf River Cam and it's a tangible thing that they can see all the different types of species of fish that go through, how many fish go through, like just you adding stuff like the temperature, people can keep track of that throughout the season. And just, I think it brings a sense of community, but it also like brings people closer to my point of view as far as a water quality scientist. Like, these are the things that we're trying to manage. And from my perspective, this is a valuable tool for my job, right? Because not only this is just for the Wolf River, right, specifically, but it also gives me like little details that I can use in my job, just a little bit north of you. So I really think
Sure.
that's a cool thing about it.
Yeah, and really you talk about the temperature, and that always brings up a conversation. People are like, okay, temperature, what's that mean? And when did they spawn? And when do they? And it's from this temperature to 40 to 45, somewhere there. And people are like, no, it's 42 to somewhere in there. But not all walleyes are the same. And it all depends upon a lot of things. Just seeing when the walleyes show up. There's a lot of lengthy conversation of what triggers the walleyes to show up. And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't know. Been doing it forever, been fishing this my whole life. My family's been on the river their whole life. I don't know. I honestly don't. My theory is it has a lot to do with ice. Seeing, like you just mentioned about learning what's underneath the ice, that we know the environment's a lot brighter when there's ice there. From what we've seen here, because we put cameras through the ice on the river, and it's a lot brighter when that sun's hitting the ice versus when the water's open. So I think that has something to do with it, and maybe it's something where walleyes are we're predator prey. We want to make sure we're not running up where we're exposed and bright and whatever. We want to run up where it's a little bit darker, but when that ice moves, and then there's water temperature. Of course, there's then there's I want to say gestation period, if that's the proper term I'm using for it, but basically how long their eggs are along. There's a lot to it. And, I think there's some points where they have to go. We've seen them come up underneath the ice. That's when there was a longer ice period. So different things like that. So I think there's a lot of things that play into it. Just the ice being gone alone, that doesn't do it. We've seen them come through here in the beginning of March with ice out. We've seen them come through here in late March with ice out. There's just so much to it.
Yeah, and I think another important thing while we're talking about factors for walleyes, I think current has a lot to do with it too. And so even with an ice cap, you can still get a pretty fair amount of current depending on what's going on upriver, right? And so I think that it's just one of those things where you can start putting those, going back to fishing, putting those puzzle pieces together, putting the time of year, putting current and temperature and, ice conditions, if they're on or off or whatever.
Sure.
You can even look at the types of fish coming through, because I think early on, I've noticed that you see a few more pike, coming up and swimming around, and then all of a sudden they kind of get scarce. You'll see one or two, but then you'll start seeing like suckers and walleyes. They overlap a little bit, but you start seeing them. But then once you start seeing the pike again, that means they're coming out of the marshes because they're
Sure.
early spawners. And so then you can kind of say, oh, well, the walleye are probably going to be starting winding down here pretty soon. So those are all really, really cool things to be able to watch in real time.
Yeah, and people bring up all the time about the suckers. I'm like, well, I said, quite honestly, I think the suckers are there for a current break for the walleyes, because it never fails until the walleyes get so many that they kind of overwhelm the suckers. But when you see 2-3 suckers go by, there is a walleye right in their path, and they're following them, which people are like, that's goofy. But I'm like, well, let's take a look at it though. They're right on the bottom, and what's on the bottom? There's contours on the bottom, and they got a long swim ahead, so they don't want to. They're not swimming out in the deep water. They want it a little bit shallower. They want some current, but hitting at the bottom of that river and going along them contours, literally almost dragging their bellies on the bottom. There's the current's a little easier because you'll get a little mound of silt there, whatever, that the current be a little current break behind. That's a little bit easier where they can paddle. So I believe there's something to that, which is why, your Wolf River rigs, you got to be careful too. One of the things we learned that if you have a Wolf River rig on and you have your sinker line too short, that minnow is going to drill himself pretty much into behind one of them little contours, whatever. They could sit in a break and not get washed away, and they can hide. So that's why you have your sinker line, 28 inches off the bottom to hold them up in the area. Of course, now your walleyes are going underneath it unless they're hungry. They can go. So there's a lot of things that you talked about before, like you guys mentioned about learning, and that's some of the things that we've seen that was been pretty intriguing. We know things worked. We just kind of didn't know why sometimes.
Oh my goodness. So we're both laughing at the comments. Wes is saying every single time I turn that camera on at work, my boss walks out. So I got to go sit in the bathroom for 10 minutes. But I think so many people, maybe if you're lucky enough to have dual monitors, that's a little bit easier to put over on the side and stuff. But I think so many people, like you're saying, do spend, a lot of time watching, and like we're talking the transition of these fish and the nuances of, the pike and the water temperatures and the breaks. And I think though that this is what people are watching, because you see a lot of these different comments you do a lot of live feeds and social media and posts and all this kind of stuff. People love it. We love it. Right. But you see people comment on those themes in the videos. And it's so interesting to be able to have those examples there for people to watch and kind of experience together.
Yeah, and it's a, just like we talk about raft fishing being a partial social engagement. It's based on maybe social and we're fishing. It's kind of like a deer hunting thing as well too. There's plenty of establishments in the area that you walk into it, whatever, it's up on the wall, whether it's a gas station, a tavern, or whatever, the supper club, whatever, they'll have it up on the wall, and that's a great way to keep people glued to the business. They just sit there and watch it. And it's whether you're at work or out having fun, but it's kind of funny about the springtime when if Kim and I go out for supper and it's during the time that we're doing the live fishing. We'll be sitting in there and it'll be like 45 minutes before we start. And all of a sudden you'll see a lot of eyes on us looking at us, whatever. And they're like, "You fishing tonight?" We're like, "Yeah, we're almost done eating. We'll get going." So it's really almost overwhelming as far as what it means to different people. There's certainly people that are the diehard fishermen that they're watching water temp, they're watching clarity, which 5 hours ago she chocolate milked up on us, what you see here. Yesterday it was, you could see 3 times the distance, but water clarity, water temperature. Some people just like being around other people and talking fishing. They don't fish anymore. They loved fishing. They talk about when they used to fish with their dad or their grandpa or their grandkids. It's probably a 50-50 for us, that connection with people, which I think also keeps them coming back quite a bit because we kind of have an emotional connection, versus being just a diehard fish information and everything else as well too. I just don't know. Some people are that passionate about their fishing, that's their connection. But with ours, there's a lot of social to it, where there's people will come on and also be like, "Well, so and so hasn't been on yet. Can somebody check on her? Or check on him? And there's text messages going like they're normally on 5 days a week, and where are they now? Or so it's really interesting, and it's oddly fulfilling as well too, when we do some of the live shows.
Yeah. And so I know that there's a lot of people at home that are watching. So if you guys have questions, feel free to drop that in that comment section, because we will talk about all those things that you want to talk about. But I do have to say, you are bringing up an amazing piece of, I guess, Wisconsin culture, Wolf River culture, is the actual Wolf River raft, right? So this is not every single river is chock full of rafts. And this is really, really kind of unique to the area. So can you tell us a little bit about, because like you said, you're not in your house or your garage, like you're on your Wolf River raft. Is that true?
Yes. And we talked last night. Actually, I think we finally gave it a official name, and it was called Shack on a Raft. But
Oh.
and that's really it. A floating dock with a cabin on top.
Hmm.
If you take your, you know, 10 by 10, they're all shapes and forms. Some people start with a pontoon boat and they build a little cabin on top. Some people just have an open dock, that maybe they have a small little camper on shore and then just a ramp down, to go down to grab the cane pole when it hits. A lot of different variations. One thing's for sure, they're all heated, because obviously weather can change day by day. And there's a lot of lures. There's all kinds of lures always hanging. So a lot of them with busted bills, and that's just the environment you live in. It's back to the old adage that if you like one color, buy five, because you're gonna need them. So
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna jump in really quick. So you mentioned lures hanging all over, and one of the things, and I will just throw myself under the bus. I am a Wolf River raft novice. Like I have never been on one. I've just admired
Okay.
them from my boat, and I think they're the coolest ever. Right. One of the things that I've noticed though is that everybody says when you are gonna go fish walleyes on the Wolf, you use the Wolf River rig, the flies, and yada yada. Okay, I know there's multiple methods, but that's what's suggested. But you know what I see all the rafts doing is they don't use flies, is they do use hard baits. So, what is the difference between being on the boat and being on the raft that you would be fishing so differently?
Pre-spawn or post-spawn. Pre-spawn, they're coming up. They're a little more finicky. They've got obviously their mind on spawning, getting their location. Sure, they'll go jig and minnow. Maybe they'll go fly. A fly is going to move through the water faster. That's just going to be something that is maybe way more aggressive for them to chase. They just don't really feel like that. Where if a jig is just popping off the bottom once in a while, that's something they can kind of manage, not spend a whole lot of energy to eat, basically. The first, there's a kind of a couple of groups of fish that come up on a little, that migrate up for the spawning run. First group is basically the river fish that winter in the river year round, whether it's New London or Wyweega or Fremont, some in Shiacton. They'll move first, while the ones in Winnebago, the big females and everything else, they'll kind of get together and move in a group, and that's a big group that we usually see that comes through. But so it's a little bit different. The first ones typically are, a lot of big females that move up. There's some males that are mixed in with them, but that's mainly the big group. And when we talk about, catching 28 inches, 26 inches when, the up run's happening, jigging. A lot of times, I mean, I caught a couple in the mouth this year, but there's always a percentage of them that you belly hook in the tail, whatever else, because they're just not hungry, but they're awfully big to get out of the way of the jig. Obviously, foul hook ones we throw back, but and full spawners in general too, we throw back. But that's kind of the first group, and they're very, very fussy, very tight-lipped. They just don't bite very well, and people get a little bit discouraged that way. I'm like, don't worry about it. The bigger group's coming. They're going to be hungrier. They have to swim further. So by the time they get up here, they're probably going to have an appetite, and they'll know that once they get to this point, maybe they're close to where we're going to spawn. The temperature's up a little bit higher, a little more active. So that's the up run. Wolf River rigs work great for that. Jigs, flies work okay on the up run. Flies, like I said before, work typically, from what I've seen, better on the down run, because that fly is a lot more active when it's zipping through the water, and the harder you can zip it, the better it is. So the fish are really after getting that bite. When we talk about down run on hard baits, that's where we're going to be talking about. Holy man, did you see the size of that fish?
Yeah.
Sorry, I got a couple monitors going on here, and I just still, yeah. Anyway, hard baits though, number 13 Rapalas, Smithwicks, scatter wraps, jointed, not jointed, hot steel, purple, whatever, and clown, and everything in between. That's something where a lot of these fish, after they spawn, they're going to get in the big current and they're heading back to the lake. And the faster current they can be in, the better, because it's going to carry them further with a lot less effort, because they're tired. They just spawn out. They're hungry, but they're tired. So why not kind of let the current carry you downriver? And we watched on live scope before, and we'll see our are hard baits in the water, and you can literally watch a walleye go down, or you'll see a fish go on the bottom of the river, and all of a sudden it actually comes up and grabs hold of that hard
Oh.
bait. Yeah. So everything gets um some people just go, I'll just lower it down a little bit further, bounce her off the bottom twice, and that's how deep we need to fish, and throw whatever sinker you can, or double sinkers or whatever. And there's some people, one of the rafts I fish with some guys there, everything is measured, depth, weight of sinker. I mean, it's to a science. And if you get a fish on, don't reel if there's a reel on it, because we already set that depth by a yardstick. So it's pretty wild, but certainly effective. And then you kind of have an idea when it's, especially with colors, and with weight too. I mean, if you're running a 3 ounce, 4 ounce, or 5 ounce, depending upon the amount of current, that bait's gonna might sit a little bit deeper in the water with a 5 ounce in whatever CFM current versus a 3 ounce. It might tail out a little bit longer, and you just won't have the depth. So there's a science to it. We joke about the guy that's really into it. So, but it's that's the thing on the down run. They're just looking to eat whatever they can get their mouths on, and it's those big hard baits that they can see in that deeper water, and because that's got all the silt and the brush and the whatever coming down too, and that's what they go after.
Well, and when you talk about the science of it, one of the things that is a little bit sciencey but is easy to follow is back to that temperature gauge that you have on that screen. And I'm bringing this up again because Glenn is asking in the comments, when do you think the fish will spawn? And I love this question because people always ask this, Glenn. I'm not even saying you specifically, right? But people in general will ask this question like as if it's like a day, like as the fish, they all go upstream, they like arrange a date and that's that. And then they move on, right? No, that's not it. But I think it's important to watch those temperatures because like you were mentioning earlier that there is this range, some people say 42 to, so specific, but it's really 40 to 46, whatever. And so when you get these temperatures inching up that little bit and you have fish that have already gone up, and maybe are already coming back down as fish are going up, the more traffic that you have is, the more likely that you are to get a bite. And I think that's what people are really noticing, that because there's always that midpoint in the run where everyone's like, this is it,
Yeah. And I tell people too, I'm like, and I kind of equate it to humans, go, okay, take two pregnant humans, to be kind of general, that were maybe conceived on the same day. They're not going to have their babies on the same day. It's just not going to happen. It's odd that, I mean, one might be a day longer to whatever. All depends upon how gestation, whatever, how everything grows, whatever, and that's really it. And with the walleyes, if they say, when do they spawn, and if you said, but it's 42 degrees, well, there's some walleyes that are already in the marshes ready to go at 42 degrees, and some of them aren't. They're still swimming up. So when they get there, they might spawn, but that's just kind of how that. I mean, they're not all going to go at the same time. It's just it's just hard to tell. Generally, it's 40 to 44, 5, 6, somewhere in there, maybe 39 somewhere at they'll spawn. It's just a matter of if they're there, if there's males there, if they've got water flow, if they got a place to do it in, if they're far enough along in their pregnancy, if you would. That's all gonna come into play. There's some that'll spawn probably late, 46. Maybe they're the last ones group that came up through. So a lot to it.
Dan is also saying that barometer has a part in the timing of the spawn. I have to be honest, I don't know that much about that. I have heard like the moon phase and all these different things, and helps determine the depths they spawn in. Yeah, there you go. That's pretty interesting. So that's definitely something that I'll have to learn more about. But as far as the cameras themselves, are they always in the same spot from year to year to year?
Generally, yes.
Are you allowed to divulge like where these are at, or just generally just Shiocton, New London?
Yes. And when people ask me, Cameron Shiocton? Yes. Where at? Yes.
Yes.
In other words, yes. And then I say to people, I'm like, well, do you want to know where the camera's at, or do you want to know where to catch fish? Because I can tell you how to catch fish. I think that's what you're really trying to ask me, is because them fish came all the way from Fremont or from Oshkosh or from Neenah or Menasha, and they went all the way through here, and they might go all the way to Shawano.
Hmm.
So anywhere along there, you can catch that same fish or try to catch that same fish. So it doesn't necessarily matter here. We're just it's just a spot in a river that, property we own or whatever. So that's all. They're
Yeah,
all
and
coming through. Now,
that's a great point because when Emily and I fished the Wolf for quite a few years, and we you would just be surprised at like the places like us, like you, like we would be surprised at like the places where you would find fish or you wouldn't find fish where you thought there was going to be fish, and it seemed like every day or every time we went out it was never the same spot twice, right? And so it just river fishing is just one of those things where you just have to practice and check your spots and just check everywhere. Basically, just fish until you start catching fish.
That's terrible advice on a
I mean,
fishing podcast.
no,
Just
but that's-
try everything everywhere.
Well, no, but that's on the river. Like that's just how it is. That's why the river is so addicting. That's why it's hard for some people to learn how to fish the river. But once you do learn how to fish the river, I think it makes you an overall better angler.
well, and just applying the idea that the fish are going to swim up on the shallower side and they're going to go back on the deeper side. And people go, what's depth have to do with it? Current speed. That's also something, whether you're a boater, a kayaker, canoe, whatever the case is, that you should be aware of that typically on a bend, the outside of the water, just from physics, whatever, is going to be a faster side of the current because it goes around that corner faster. That's where you'll see a lot of riprap where the silt's been washed away and there's somebody put rocks in there to preserve the shoreline. That they're not going to be out there on the way up. On the way back, they might be there, but that's why we talk about shallow side, deep side, and what we're really saying is slow current, fast current. They want less current to swim against. They want a lot of current on the way back. So that's and that can change. I mean, they might change 5 feet. It depends upon if there's a tree laying down further up, whatever, and it created a little bit of sandbar. So that little trough that's there, whatever, that they kind of just sit and they're running up a little ridge or a little valley or something like that. That might moved over 3 feet because a tree fell down. So that's where you talk about moving around a little bit, where maybe you're just not just long laying the whole time. You throw one out, whatever, to fan over to cover those areas and just search around for them.
Mm.
Well, and you bring up a good point. The river changes so much from year to year that you just have to be fishing it. It just changes year to
Right.
year, day to day. It's always changing. Look
Keeps
at
on
Emily's
going.
face.
I'm watching the cam and I moved on.
Did you
top
see
of
that? Yeah.
Yeah.
They were
Okay,
interested.
so as far as you see a lot of people with a lot of different tactics on the Wolf River. And I feel like sometimes people are split 50-50 between anchoring and drift fishing. So do you have any tips for how you choose what you do for the day?
Typically when we're pre-spawn, it's going to be, and maybe just after spawn, it's probably going to be anchoring, just because at that time of the year, usually the water's a little bit higher and your drift speed would be really fast.
Mm.
And so that's why we kind of let's just anchor in this current, and instead of running all over, there's still stuff coming down and trees to go around too. But when things shallow out a little bit, which would be later in April after the spawn's done, that typically, and so the river's on the rise, but normally the river will start to go down a little bit, probably for a month or so, and there's a lot of factors in that. The dam that's in Shawano, the situation that's in, how much water they've got coming to them, or if they can close up their gates, whatever the case may be. So there's a lot to that, but typically more anchoring pre-spawn early on when because the current's usually a lot heavier and a little bit deeper, and it would just carry you too fast downstream. Now, to counter that, when you do have and you want to drag crawlers or do whatever, just vertical jig to counter some of that, we're going to get a little old school on you, is there's probably some neat manufactured ideas to do that, whatever. But if you know what a window weight is, if you grab a window weight and put it on a string and you drop it in, a window weight's basically just a long piece of lead, basically, that they used to use in windows, double hung windows that slide up and down to kind of offset the balance. So they'd slide up real nice. Well, you take one of those because it's almost like a big pencil sinker, but it's about 8 pounds, and that will slow your drift down. Or you can adjust it, maybe pull up a little bit, maybe just drag the tip. Those are some things you can do to slow your drift down if you're, dragging crawlers, whatever, and you still have a lot of current.
I actually saw another post that somebody uses a 5-gallon bucket over the side, kind of like a drift sock. So
Okay.
so I think
Yeah.
I think there's all kinds of methods out
Yeah.
there. I like the window weight. I like
And those are very hard to come by. So when you
Yeah,
get to the
they're
rummage
getting
sale,
rare
and there's
now.
window weights, just we use them for set lines too. They work great for not hooking up. When a tree comes down, you typically slide through a tree, and that's why we don't use anything with any mass a whole lot width beyond our line there, so that it can slide through. Window weights work great.
That's
Awesome.
actually wow. Yeah, interesting. Can't say you didn't learn something new tonight.
Right.
Right. Somebody out there is like, I do that. Oh my gosh. So one of my favorite things about the Wolf River Cam, and people, I hear a lot of ragging on the Wolf River, and maybe it's just because we're so close to, the Fox and Green
They're
Bay. And
just jealous.
well, no, because I think honestly, you hear so many giants coming out of Green Bay and stuff that sometimes Wolf River, people are like, those are all eaters in there, right? But as we are watching this, there's fish coming by that are big enough that they are like distracting, right? I'm like, oh, ooh. And so I think that's really cool thing, because that really demonstrates, there's good fish out there reproducing. This looks like a healthy ecosystem. I mean, I guess I don't want to like over assume, right? But you do see so many different fish going by, and actually we saw a tagged one earlier, which is really super unique. But I just love to be able to watch that from year to year to year. And I don't know, I feel like maybe I'm wrong and other people can chime in. I feel like overall, some of these fish have gotten bigger.
I don't know. It's
You're like, maybe
really
not. I'm catching a ball.
hard to tell. And I've been asked, I'm like, can we like put a ruler down there or something? I'm like, well, but then what if it's behind or in front and
Yeah.
whatever? I'm like, it's really hard to tell. For size wise in the Wolf River, it's rare to get anything over 28. You'll catch a 28 or so each year.
But that's a
That's
good
it.
fish.
That's a big fish.
Yeah.
Especially if it's it's a female. It's going to be female. 99 out of 100 times or more. And I mean, that's a 8-9 pound fish. I mean, it's some of them coming by, they must probably pushing 10. But I think I've seen 230s caught in the system in 52 years I've been alive. That's really it. And it's just the depth of Lake Winnebago and everything. It's just really hard to get beyond that threshold. But consistent fish of 20 to 26, yeah, we have that definitely. And it's really all in perspective about what your goal or what your thought is. I know when they talked fish limit pros and cons about that, and people are like, well, I'll keep 5 14-inchers, but maybe I'll keep 3 20-inchers. So it's a little bit different theory of how they do it, what their goal is when they fish, if it's just an enjoyment. We do a lot of catch and release. My wife and I, because we fish quite a bit, so it's like I'd be cleaning fish every day. So if I'm lucky, but so that's part of it too. And there's a large population that they love fishing, but they also like walleyes. That's their fish, and they love catching them. And they'll catch 3 in the morning, and they'll take them inside, and they'll eat them. And right then, there's really nothing better than fresh walleye, that's right out of cold water and literally butchered in the frying pan.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I bet it's easier to cook on a Wolf River raft than it is my boat. We got to get a raft one of these years.
You need to buy some land so you can park
we'll
your
see.
raft.
Okay, so as far as fishing out there, you do have, I know it is actually really hard to see because like you said, it is pretty chocolate milk, the water. But there are lures out there. And so this is something that you do. Do you actually fish in front of the cams every single night?
Not every night. Springtime, way more than other nights, more than other times. I think there might have been like 27 out of 30 days in a row last year that it happened. It was pretty much like religion for a month. It was just that's what we did. We just bump home, eat, fish camera down, watch them go by and not bite our bait, whatever. Um, so yeah, so we do it a fair amount of times. We do walleye, and right after walleye, we'll catfish quite a bit, and whatever else, crappies. There's a fair amount of bluegill or other panfish as well too.
Mhm.
But
I don't tell people that though.
yeah, right. And yeah, bios and on like the Wolf River, they're great crappie hotspots, and
Mhm.
they rarely get fished and rarely get fished in the fall and when they're really going. And we do a lot of catfishing too. That gets to be a little bit of fairer weather type of ordeal other than bugs, but we'll do that in front of the camera as well too. We'll drop down a dip bait or one of our favorites, and we'll have there's a pretty good run of catfish to come up. We'll jig and catch catfish channels and smaller flatheads. I mean, we're not going to put up a whole big fight with a medium action 6 foot rod with 6 pound low vis green on it to a 5 pound flathead even. So we caught some smaller ones. There's some 5 pound channels. They're a little bit easier to bring in, but yeah, we transition into catfish after walleyes, and because they're right on the tail end of it. And once the walleyes have spawned, they're heading down, and whether they come down the river fast or slow, or at all depends upon water depth. We
Mm.
like to see the water stay up a little bit higher for quite a while because they really don't have a sense of urgency to get out of here. Some of them are dump and get. They don't care. Eggs gone. I'm going back to Winnebago, or I'm going back to Butamore or Poigan, whatever the case is.
Yeah.
Some will stay around long as there's good enough water depth. They'll stay. So when we have those years where it's a little bit higher, then also we have a dry time of quite a while, whatever, and all of a sudden it crashes down. Then fish will get out of here in a hurry. A lot of them, a lot more winter over in New London, Fremont, Waiwega, those areas down there than they do Shackton. Because Shackton's a little bit smaller than those rivers are, quite a bit narrower. We do have some deeper areas, but so they have the sense of yeah, we better get back to safety and head back down. So
So do you actually have the cameras out all year round, just in different areas? Then I have to admit, I was going to say a fair weather watcher, mostly spring.
sure. Yeah, typically in spring we'll have everything will be out full on. We have Shackton, New London, and Fremont's been on and off over the years. Now Fremont's back on this year, just different locations. Certainly in the spring, and once we get to the point where we get post spring, gets a little bit warmer out, that brown algae collects on them lenses, hourly. I mean, if you're not cleaning them once a day, and it has nothing to do with the camera, it's just a matter of that brown algae gets on everything.
Yep.
Leave your boat in the water for a week or so, whatever, and you'll see. And cleaning the camera lenses off, and if you don't do it, it gets harder and harder to get it off. I mean, it comes off easy enough with a damp, wet, soft cloth, whatever. But it just gets a little bit more to maintain. So sometimes the ones that maybe don't have as much traffic, will pull them in. And though we've run AquaViews I've run one camera. Heck, we had it for like 6 or 7 years. Ran the same camera, was a Shack to one camera we ran for that long. And just like they've said, nobody's had a camera longer than we have in the water,
Yeah.
longer than we have, whether any brand. But they have a life. So the best we can do to prolong it, we'll do that. And we put them through the test. I mean, we're rough on them, and they're AquaView. And when I say AquaView has been great supporters of ours, and they've certainly done a lot for us, whatever, and have supported us even through the time that we're not so smart. So there's through the ice, there's times, these 250-pound Kevlar cords are nothing compared to an ice spud.
Yep.
It'll slice right through them. It doesn't even have a chance.
Oh, uh-oh.
Yep, it's happened. We cut, splice, we'll tape it up.
Well, we are also big supporters of AquaView. We love running their stuff. They have just the best picture, and I think your your website and all of your lives and stuff is a testament to that for sure.
Yeah,
Okay, wait.
definitely.
I have one more question though.
Okay.
Have you ever seen anything like crazy, unusual, unexpected going up or down the river?
Probably the rarest fish we see is a buffalo carp.
Oh,
Um, they're just odd looking. Everybody's like, "Oh my god, Asian carp." I'm like, "No, it's a buffalo carp. They really look like it."
Yep.
But those are the oddest. We'll see lampreys.
Hmm.
Earlier this year, we had probably it was like a week ago or so, whatever. We were jigging on the bottom, and a mud puppy cruised in and sat and looked at her
Oh.
jig for a while. And he'd creep up on him, and I'd lift the jig in the air, and then he'd lose where it is, and I'd bounce it off his head a couple times. So just because they are what they are. And we actually had a little school of there's 3 or 4 mud puppies that came in that little group. So it was pretty funny, but nothing really crazy out of the ordinary. We'll see guard. There's a lot of guard in the Wolf River system. We just don't see them a whole lot, at least up here. I know on Fremont, there's a lot of guard on there. And they're unmistakable because they have that great big long toothy nose, So
Mhm.
but we'll see them come by in the camera and be like, "Oh, gar." Um, I had reports that I know there's muskie in the Wolf River or the Lake Winnebago system. I know there's muskie in the Wolf River. I've seen them at the Shawano Dam already. It's just odd to have them come by. So we maybe get reports of one a year, maybe. Other than that, white bass or something else where we don't get them up in Shacklin as much anymore. But obviously Fremont, Winneconne, they're lousy like flies. They're everywhere. So, which is a good thing. And so yeah, so as far as odd things, I mean, we've seen muskrats, otters, turtles come by on a rare occasion, but because they're working the bank, they're looking for fish too. So,
that's
and
cool.
yeah, absolutely.
And the one thing that you always do a great job of covering that we haven't even touched on actually yet is the sturgeon run. You always have some really great reports on that, and that is actually coming up as well.
Yeah, so fortunately, the sturgeon will be coming up soon. Unfortunately for people jigging, there's quite a few sturgeon here. It's already so we would see one a night for the last week or so, and then the last 2 nights there's been 5 or 6. And what's that?
Large.
And big. I mean, they're
Mhm.
and again, you can't tell size, but when it takes a couple seconds for it to get by the camera,
Oh yeah.
it's massive. And just and they've got a long swim too. A lot of them are probably going to the dam or different areas that they're at. This early in the water temp, those are probably going to the dam because they've got a long swim. But yeah, Bamboo Bend and Shacklin, the Shawano Dam, the Wolf River Highway X Wolf River Trail in New London are some of the areas where with public viewing that you can see the sturgeon being spawning and then being tagged and assessed by the DNR as well too. And we're on it pretty well. There's some cameras at Bamboo Bend that Shells and the Wolf put in that we broadcast and we pretty much take care of. And it's kind of a good cooperation there, whatever, to show everybody the sturgeon because that's even a more social type of group that like the sturgeon just because they like to see them because they're massive. And we have one of the best sturgeon fisheries, I think, basically in the world. In the Winnebago system. So it's been written about, it's been studied, it's been from people all over the place. We had National Geographic here a couple years ago, and they were doing a story on the lake sturgeon, a global story on the lake sturgeon, and we actually were fortunate enough to hold a couple cameras for them in the water when they were up at the dam, and 2, they actually hired us to do drone video for them. Also,
Cool.
so that was kind of neat. Got a hat to show it, so. They took care of us, but yeah, I'm like, oh, I got a hat. I mean, I was there. I'm like, I'll do it. Pretty much, I wanted to say for the credentials. I mean, it was a really neat thing to work with, and Jen and Dave were great people to work with. But yeah, the sturgeon will be, it's going to be at least a couple weeks. Looking at the forecast, we got to warm up quite a bit from where we're at now. We got to go at least probably, I don't know, 10 degrees in water
Mhm.
temp. That's a long ways to go, especially looking at there's more rain coming in. And the deeper the water is, because the water's on the rise, it just just like everything else. You got a bathtub full of water. It's hard to turn it warm if it's cold because of the volume. So that's one of the things that plays into the equation too. Because they can spawn. I've seen them spawn into May already, and by that time they're literally just bursting. If you ever seen that, that's gross. So,
Yeah.
so, but yeah, that's coming up too. One thing I wanted to add a little bit when you talked about Aquaview and Kim and I, we also do, and talking about times during the year when we do live fishing stuff, we also do video through the ice too. And that's actually a little bit more complex than this.
Mhm.
And it's a lot of fun. Obviously with the water not looking like that, it's a lot clearer. You can see so much distance. And we do a fair amount of that. It's usually almost every weekend, at least 1 or 2 days on the weekend, couple hours. And we put our Aquaview down there, put it on a bait. Maybe it's on a wind jigger, whatever the case may be. And you will see panfish and crappies. And we did see a muskie this past year, which was kind of cool. They had no interest in our wax room that we had on our little tiny jig, whatever, but they just cruised by. But it was pretty awesome. That fish almost ran in the camera. So that's something we do in the wintertime too. And actually, you'll for us, we actually it's more the social part of it too. And people, there's a fair amount of people that go, "Where are you fishing this weekend?" I'm like, "I'm not sure yet, but when we get there, we'll let you know." And they tune in. We talk about water, we talk about life, we talk about whatever. So it's really incredible experience.
That sounds awesome. We'll have to bug you again this winter when
Yeah.
you have that stuff down, because that would be fun to see.
Absolutely.
I'm gonna come and fish your panfish on the Wolf River again.
Right. There's spots.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's
And panfish double as set line bait too for a lot of people.
Oh.
Well, with the VHS regulations, it can't leave body of water alive anywhere
Yep.
in the state. So it's, you get in your boat and you go up in some of these back bios and pick up some panfish or pick up some little yellow belly bullheads. Yellow belly or small bullheads is probably the prime bait for set line. They just love them. And we've tried to, over the years, and a lot of years ago, we tried to alter them. We tried to clip the stingers on them or the spines on them, whatever. The flatheads won't touch them once you do that. It's really bizarre. So they like them untouched. They'll swallow them down. Yeah, it's pretty wild to see the differences. But yeah, bluegills work really well for catfish and flatheads. So, and then there's a certain amount of suckers obviously around too, since you see the ones on the camera here. So
Right.
Yeah. I'll be watching.
yeah, we did actually last year. We put a camera on it was probably a 12-inch sucker, maybe 11-inch sucker, on a bank pole, and put the camera down in front of it, and to watch it during the night. And we turn it on at late times of night, see if it's still there. Yeah, it was still there. Yeah, it was still there. Then Kim woke me up. She goes, "Hey, something's wrong." I'm like, "What's wrong?" She goes, "The camera keeps tipping back and forth." I'm like, "What?"
Oh.
Here, what's come to find out, I go down, then I saw a fin. I'm like, "Well, there's a fish there. That's not the sucker's tail. It almost looks like a walleye." Well, what happened is a walleye chased that sucker around, wrapped around the camera, and then finally got him. Well, of course, it got a 2-aught or 1-aught hook in its mouth too. So here I am, walleye has the sucker in his mouth, hooked onto the bank pole. I got a fish camera in there. They're wrapped around that. So I basically pulled everything up and scooped with my net, everything, 27-inch walleye.
Wow.
Ate an 11-inch sucker. So I'm like, I give up. I don't. Why aren't we fishing with 11-inch suckers? I guess maybe that's what we got to do. So that was pretty wild. So there's a lot of different things we see, that and experiences that I can't believe that happened. Whether it's our catfishing episode when we're fighting against caddisflies, when there's a flicker of light somewhere, they are all over it, and there's thousands of them.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really bizarre, and it's fun. It's really a good time.
Oh my goodness. Well, I know that we will be following along, and I know that people at home will as well. I think one of the things that Joshua is pretty good about is copying the links and putting it into the comment section so that people can click on that and watch and follow pretty easily. But can you tell us what are the best ways to watch and follow you through social media?
So wolfrivercam.com. So it's WOLFRIVERCAM, which is short for camera, .com. And you'll get to our homepage, and then on the screen, whether in the navigation bar or up in the corner somewhere, whatever, you'll be able to click and select, Shiacton, New London, Fremont, Bamboo Bend. Bamboo Bend will start up once the sturgeon start up. That camera then will be active, or those cameras will be active. But yeah, go over to wolfrivercam.com, select there. We're on social media. When we do our live fishing, we do that a lot through Facebook. We're also doing it through YouTube in the springtime as well too. So we're kind of balancing our traffic there, because some people just like YouTube to see it there. Some people like to watch on Facebook. All depends upon pretty much the user interface, the chat area, and that's the main thing, the chat area. The video is the same, it's just the chat area. If they have a YouTube account, if they have a Facebook account, and to have conversations with people. So yeah, well, and we we when we go live, sometimes we announce it. I tell everybody, I'm like, I never know if I'm going to fish tomorrow, because I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't want to promise you something I can't deliver. So I never say, hey, we're fishing tomorrow, unless I know it's locked in. But generally, we in the springtime we'll fish most days. But when they come on Facebook, there's a little time for people to come in and have a conversation. Some people will follow it, so it puts a little pops up on their phone or whatever the case is, wherever they watch it from. Some people watch on their TV, some people watch on their phone or desktop. But yeah, wolfrivercam.com. Our sponsors are there as well too. We have some local business as well as larger national ones like Aquaview that really help provide us with means of purchasing equipment. I mean, I went through. I can't even tell you how many laptops I bought in my lifetime. It's really ridiculous. But that's all they do. So just in the everyday equipment you don't think of, I think I own about 15 HDMI cables, or I own 20 RCA cables and whatever else, all this different stuff that helps make it go, and power supplies for laptops and power strips, and there's a lot to that. That's a fair amount of money. And I tell people, Mike, without their support, I will still do it. We're still going to do it, but it really helps us. Even if we're doing good, we get an extra couple dozen minnows maybe or something too. So.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, I love that idea of even just people, if you can just donate that amount of minnows. Yeah, that's awesome. Just,
right,
like you said, all the little bit helps. Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh my gosh. Well, we are so excited to keep watching and following and having those conversations. And hopefully we'll all bump into you out on the river. Well, I guess it's not all of us all at once.
Yeah, we usually, when we see you at shows, you're usually on one side, I'm on the other, and we're going the opposite direction. And we'll say, hey. And by that time, one of us is talking to somebody else, and we all wave. It's all cordial.
Oh my gosh, that is awesome. But we really appreciate you, taking the time and being here with us tonight. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thanks for having us on. Appreciate it.
Yeah. And to everybody at home, thank you guys for being here as well, because that is always a big part of the fun. And other than that, we're looking forward to seeing everyone on the next week's edition of The Night Bite.
Night, everybody.